Welcome to the Bias Buzz. I'm Don Irvine. He's Brian McNichol.
Good morning.
All right, plenty of news as usual, and everything just keeps changing on us. So let's just start off with maybe the bigger news is Donald Trump, or at least the more controversial news by the news media, and Donald Trump's remarks yesterday in North Carolina about the Second Amendment. Brian, do you think he really threatened Hillary Clinton's life?
I think that's ridiculous. I think that the overwroughtness of this is the story. It's like I saw, my Facebook feed and editorials in the papers and so forth this morning. How dare he incite violence, this and that. Like, he's not inciting violence. Come on. He's not suggesting kill the opponent. I do think it's an opportunity for him, though, to come out and say, look, we're in a political race. We are not in a war. We do not want to shoot the opponent. And I think it would kind of show a side of him that he might actually end up gaining out of this. The other thing that troubles me about this is he has this nasty habit of stepping on opportunities. Instead of, if he would have said nothing yesterday, if he'd have sat in a hole in the ground and done nothing, okay, then the story today would be Hillary explaining what Omar Mateen's dad is doing in the VIP section of her rally in Florida yesterday. Sitting there grinning like a Cheshire cat. But now, no one's, that's just extremism. Meanwhile, he's threatening her life. No, he's not. But, the media has long beclowned itself in this election.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it's a good point here with the Mateen thing. We'll talk about that as well. This really gets me. I mean, I do think that the statement was, probably ambiguous. It left a lot of room for interpretation, but boy, it didn't take long for the Clinton campaign and the liberal media to jump all over Trump on this and just twist this and turn this around so that even when Trump's campaign came out with with their statement, it was really kind of dismissed. Everything I've seen, you talk about social media, you look at television, you look at newspapers, and they're making a big deal of this, and that has overshadowed the other Clinton news, which I think really is the bigger news. But you're right. Trump has this annoying, nasty habit, whatever you want to call it. He does step on opportunities. He gets in his own way. Sometimes he's his own worst enemy, on these things. There's opportunities, and they're not capitalizing on them.
Right, and there's also this, one of the accusations against him, and I think it's true, and I think if he does not deal with it or show some ability to deal with it, he's not gonna win, is, he's just fulminating on she's a threat to the Second Amendment. So he keeps talking until it's like a conversation in a bar, till you say something uproarious and everyone laughs, okay? But we don't want to laugh. We don't mind laughing with the president a little, but we don't want to be laughing at a president. We don't want to be laughing at remarks. Look how dumb he went about doing that. That doesn't give people confidence. And this is something, of all the things that have changed in our society and the level of respect for the people doing them has changed. People still take president pretty seriously. There's some clowns in Congress, but they want a serious person to do this job.
Right. Yeah. And we'll segue and we'll talk about this. We'll keep opening this up about liberal media bias with Trump going on there. Trump is, he's called the media dishonest. He's already said the elections are going to be rigged. I mean, he's throwing a lot of things out there. Just I think kind of a little food for thought. Just kind of plant a few seeds out there. Throw some seeds of doubt into people's minds about the fairness of things. And then this Jim Rutenberg wrote this article in the New York Times the other day talking about with covering Trump. Basically says, he tells him that journalistic norms on covering a presidential candidate, have to be thrown out the window, and seem to make an argument really that because it's Donald Trump, because of the way he conducts himself, that really being fair and objective is not, is really not what we're into. Hillary deserves some coverage as well, but one of the things he said in there that he talked about that. Huge amount of money. What was it, $2 million or whatever? Free of earned media coverage, as if that was something that should be a factor in all of this. But Trump has opened himself up to more coverage. I mean, Hillary doesn't. She avoids the media.
Right.
Trump basically embraces the media. good or bad,
Right.
in essence. But she stays away from it. She's very controlled. Trump says a lot of these things. The media loves to cover him. But I think now, now that we're past the primaries, and most of that earned media coverage was done during the primary season anyway. Now that we're past the primaries and we're into the last 90 days roughly, I guess now. The thing is that they're looking at him much more critically, because I think the media looks at this as, holy cow, it's basically down to Hillary or Donald Trump. We're not crazy about either one of them, but we're less crazy about Trump. So, it seems that the long knives are more out for him than for her, and yet she's got a long list of problems.
Right, and they're not the whole way this is being looked at has been skewed by the media's approach to it. It's like the Huffington Post. Every story that has anything to do with Trump, there's this paragraph: he is a misogynistic, bigoted, lying loser, and I can't remember the rest of it. But it's like, so why do I believe anything you say? How does your opinion have merit? Because you are nakedly in bed for a certain candidate. Post didn't wait to endorse. The Post goes through his stories, and they just accept, this thing about the Second Amendment. So all these stories say, he attacked her for saying that she wants to take away Second Amendment's rights, which of course she doesn't. You don't know that. Who are you to make that judgment? Because it sounds to me like she would like to have a lot of stuff done to curb Second Amendment rights. Okay, but you just dismiss that out of hand because it's against Trump. And it's like, of course, the Hillary campaign, whatever it spews out, is 100% sterling, accurate, truthful, because her opponent is Trump. I think, decades from now, when people try to piece together the history of what happened here, it's going to be difficult because there's almost no objective media covering it. The right side media is as myopic about Trump as the left side is about Hillary, but not really but to some degree they're shaped too. But the right side media was conceived as a reaction to mainstream media, right? It was not put there to be even Steven. It was put there because of a perception of the other side was biased the other way. We're just giving you the other side. So there's no objective truth because, the great newspapers of this country have completely beclowned themselves, have completely earned our enmity and disrespect for the way they have covered this election with regard to both candidates.
Right. Yeah, and you're talking about the Second Amendment thing and about Hillary, what she's going to do here. What I hear from the liberals is that she cannot and will not abolish the Second Amendment, but technically, she can really strip it down to nothing by imposing more gun control, by banning guns and things like that, to the point
appointing
where
justices to overturn the Heller decision.
Right.
That's a huge. That's every individual gets to hold a gun. Right. So if she, if you get that overturned, where it goes back to being a group right and it's for organizing militias, you've basically eviscerated the Second Amendment. So you don't need a constitutional. I'm going to ever go to a constitutional. Of course, you're not going to get a constitutional amendment to ban it. You have 300 million guns in there. You have more guns in the country than you do people. Of course, you're not going to get that. But you can get it through subterfuge. You can get it through other ways.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And the liberals miss that argument. I mean, they don't want to hear that. They want to stick on that bigger point, which has really no bearing. I mean, there's nothing factual that really backs them up on that at all. All right. So now you mentioned Omar Martin's father sitting behind Hillary during that campaign rally. It definitely, I think, it even shocked the media to see what the heck was this guy doing there. Talk about this some more. I mean, Hillary's reaction. They had a little trouble with this.
Yeah, a lot of their comments were, "Is that who we think it is?" Yeah, it's who you think it is. And he's in the VIP section. He's in the section where the campaign had to know this is this guy. This is where he's going to sit. This was no accident. And then when it blew up on him, well, to the extent it did, when people weren't worried about what Trump said in Wilmington, when it blew up on him, though, they're like, "Oh, the campaign had no idea. Our rallies are open. There's 3,000 people there. There were 10,000 in the 7,000 seat arena in Wilmington. But, we had 3,000 people at this thing. We have no way of knowing who all these people are. Yeah, you do. You put him in the VIP. His name was on a list. You did this on purpose because you are signaling that you are the pro-Muslim, candidate.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't sit in that section. You don't get to sit behind the candidate where you're going to obviously be in camera view by accident.
Right.
This is on purpose. This is pre-planned. This nonsense. This goes back to, once again, I think you can bring up the trustworthiness issue with Hillary and the honesty. It's like, how do you trust her? I mean, they're lying about this.
Yeah, they lied. They bald-faced lied about it. And, the reporters the stories say, the Hillary campaign did not know he was there. I mean, all you have to do is say the Hillary campaign said they didn't know he was there. Okay. Then it's like, at least they're lying. You're not lying on their behalf. You're not swallowing whole their nonsense and spitting it back out. But they're just like, hey, the truth is this was a ridiculous charge. No, the truth is Omar Mateen's dad was invited to your event, and you need to explain that, regardless of what Trump said in Wilmington.
Right, and I think Sadiq Mateen didn't he say on camera that he says, well, it's a Democratic event, it's an open event. I mean, he's a supporter. He's a Clinton supporter.
Right. He said she's fine on Middle East policy.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? What would he consider? Because this guy, I mean, he was a rabble rouser too. He didn't go shoot people in a club, but he's been a strong, like, pro-Taliban, so forth guy. If he says your Middle East policy is fine, what is he saying? What's he saying about what we plan to do with Israel and so forth? What should Benjamin Netanyahu think about him saying Hillary's Middle East policy is fine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be a little worried.
Yeah, I would too. All right. So then the other story too, coming out with Judicial Watch talked about they released more emails that they've obtained. I think these are once again more damning emails on Hillary. Very cozy relationship between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department.
Okay, that's the thing. It's like that's the next big thing, and she skated past the first one. I always wondered why. There's been a lot of conjecture about why Comey did what he did. Came out and laid out a terrible set of facts against her and then said, but we're not indicting. Now, Comey is asked, are you investigating the Clinton Foundation and the connection to selling policy through the State Department? And he won't answer, which leads me to believe if he were able to say no clearly, he would say no clearly, right? That would be the easiest answer to give. No, not us. Okay. But so something's going on there. And this is the first, these buckets are starting to drop, right? And these are people who they have paid for access to our government by giving money to the Clintons. Okay. Somebody tells me the other day, he said they don't accept any salaries from the Clinton Foundation. No, but they had $50 million in travel expenses. You let me have $50 million in travel expenses. I don't need a salary. I can make that work, Yeah,
if we had $50 million, we wouldn't be here.
That's right. We'd be traveling. Live from Hawaii.
Yeah, we can take the show on the road.
That's right.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right about this, and I just I can't understand this. And the thing too about the this whole pay for play or whatever you want to call it with the State Department, and the Clinton Foundation is that. They knew fully well. I mean, they were, what was going on. They were going to be scrutinized for this, and they did it anyway. It's once again, to me, it seems like we are above the law. We are just different. We're the Clintons. We don't follow those same rules again.
Yeah, they don't apply to us. And it's like, and I think it's like the remember the lady who was ripping off the D.C. government, and it started out $10. Nobody said anything. $50. I have a $100 problem this week. Before you know it, you're realizing that you can do this with impunity for a good long time. And that's what they did. It dawned on them that the Obama administration was not going to pay attention to what she did. They put her there on the theory that she couldn't really do a lot of damage to them politically from that purge. It's been quiet, before that, so forth, job, right? So, in the recent past, obviously, secretaries of state have been huge in American history. But so Obama, they start doing these little things and they realize, wow, this is a money machine. And so now it's hundreds of millions of dollars that they have raked in from people. Now, some of the favors have already come due, like apparently what these emails show. But some of the favors are awaiting her being elected president. And that is why, whatever you think of the other candidates, she cannot be president. She is hopelessly compromised.
Right. I think that's true, too. Now, one more thing about the emails, too, and we talked about this before initially when she was on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace and talked about, James Comey had basically vindicated her, exonerated her for being truthful in what she had said, her public statements and things like that. She's been called out on that. Then last week, she addresses this, which I was really surprised that she addressed the question to begin with, just the way that she's behaved.
Or she took the question.
That that she actually did this. And then she mentioned that she had short-circuited, and then she and Wallace were probably talking past each other. Who's buying this?
Right. I mean, short-circuited. What does that mean? So, I mean, my first instinct when I saw that is, let's take her at her word. Maybe it's short-circuited. In other words, your brain is so locked in to answering these questions dishonestly that even when you try to answer them honestly, you are unable to do it. That ought to tell you something about her, right? Just the most pandemically dishonest person, and if this thing is right about the State Department, she's the most corrupt politician ever. I mean, no one in American history has ever sold policy out of a foreign policy out of a government office like that. That's a first. That's a new level of depredation.
Yeah, I was tempted when I heard the short circuit thing. The thing that kept popping to my mind was Kelly McGillis in the movie with the little robot. And I thought, boy, you could create a lot of memes off of that thing, or and everything like that. But yeah, she's got all these issues. But once again, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. What Trump said. Just Trump makes one comment. He says this one thing, and it overshadows all these other things, which really are bigger news and more important than what Trump has said.
Right, but their objective is not to report what's big news. Their objective is to get Trump defeated because it's a threat to the way all these people make a living. Think about all the things that change if he wins, right? Foreign policy establishment, 50 Republicans come out this week. 50 foreign policy heads come out, say, oh, terrible idea. Okay, we're where we are because you guys were in charge, right, for a long time. Okay, so someone wants to break a little China, is that really a bad thing? That may be a good thing. Maybe we need a fresh set of eyes on some of this stuff.
All right, so that's a perfect segue to talking about these never-Trumpers, anti-Trumpers, these 50 people here. And plus, we're just seeing what seems to be a parade of people, one by one. Susan Collins, saying that she's not going to vote.
Stunner there.
Yeah,
Rhino's got a rhino.
Right. I mean, look, I was watching MSNBC this morning. Former Representative Chris Shays, Republican from Connecticut, talked about how he's not going to vote for Trump either. And that people are. And now, MSNBC has turned into the Never Trump anti-Trump network. I mean, every time I tune that on, every time I'm watching Morning Joe, all I see is that they've rounded up as many Republicans as they can find to talk about why Trump is unfit or whatever, shouldn't be, doesn't have the qualifications.
Right. You do not see a whole lot of Democrats doing that about Hillary.
No.
Which shows that it's like, so this story, I put the story up yesterday about the State Department secrets. I mean, selling the influence in the State Department. And somebody said, there's no quid pro quo proven here. It's like there's not going to be, right? No one's standing there with the cash register, right? But if all these things cannot be innocent, right? If you have this long a list of stuff, there's that much smoke. Somewhere there's a fire, right? Somewhere there's somebody who is fundamentally dishonest doing all this stuff, and it ought to bother people that the levers of power, the normal ways we have of dealing with corruption and wrongdoing in this country are being short-circuited for her.
Right. Yeah, and the thing is that, I guess, one of the things that bothers me about this campaign is just that while, neither one of us are big Trump guys, the thing is that there's an opportunity here. I mean, talk about the Obama record, talk about the Clinton legacy, and you can go back, just all of these things that we've been discussing. You can make a campaign and a case against her, against why she shouldn't be president, just on the record. Instead, it seems to me that he gets bogged down by going off on these tangents. He throws in these offhand comments. When he gives a speech for the Detroit Economic Club, he stayed pretty much on message, and and that was a focus. And whether or not you agree or disagree with the policies, his prescriptions there, that's another case, another matter. But the thing is just that he seemed to be much more focused that way. When he does these little comments, the media's waiting for it. They jump on it, and then people kind of lose sight of the whole Clinton record and things like that. But her likability or her negative ratings really they're not changing all that much, right?
Right. But I mean, it's hard to. There's a ceiling on these things, right? Or there's a floor, rather. Yeah. So 30% of the people are going to say, yeah, she's good, right? So, but the point I was trying to make about the Democrats is, at least there are Republicans who I disagree with them, what they're doing, but they are standing on principle. Democrats are willing to abjure all principles to get her in office. They do not care. There are no amount of lies, crime, bribery, whatever that we could expose that would change their minds. They're standing with that. They're going down with that. And I think, you read all these things, we're going to remember who supported Trump. From now on, that'll be a mark on you. It's going to be a mark on you if you are behind this, because that means you will take criminal activity if it's your guy, and you just don't care.
Right, and I think that's just true about the principle thing. I mean, I definitely have friends. I'm sure you have plenty of friends that have stood on principle, and gone to the never Trump or anti-Trump camp. They're still my friends. I mean, and I'm not going to hold that against them. I don't necessarily agree with them at this point, but I understand what they're doing. But you're right about the Democrats. The Democrats are they're spiteful or vengeful. They will take that out on you later. And so it's kind of like the story about the guy, the actor in Hollywood. I mean, he comes out and he says some pro-Trump things, and he basically feels like he's being blacklisted because it's the liberals in Hollywood. You do something that goes against the grain, you're marked. That's it.
Right.
You're done.
Scott Adams, the guy who does Dilbert, he now has a blog, and he's been pretty open about pointing out the problems with Hillary's stories, right, and how they don't match up to what everyone else knows to be the facts. And he goes, but I'm voting for Hillary, and the reason I'm voting for Hillary is I fear reprisal in my neighborhood if I don't. I live in California. Everybody around me, is not just voting for her, but militantly voting for her, and I worry if I come out for Trump, they will do stuff to me. I don't know. He's probably being rhetorical.
Right.
I don't really know that people are going to beat him up. But there is this ostracization. It's like, this is the correct way to think here is Hillary, And it's like, no, it's not.
All right. Well, we've got a few more things we want to do before we wrap up here. So Hillary made a big deal about Donald Trump and making his ties in China or where else, overseas. And yet the Hill came out with a story that showed that clothing that she wears, or pantsuits, were made in Bangladesh and other places. Is that not a little hypocritical?
Well, I mean, I don't think any American designer wants to be held responsible for those clothes she wears. Right. So,
we're going to go back to that again.
Was that catty?
Are you the fashion police all of a sudden again?
But I mean, it's horrible. You see these things, and it's like they look like straitjackets, And I mean, I don't know who's telling her that looks good, but it doesn't. It's very unbecoming, And I'm not one of these people. I mean, I've had, people for years like, she's so ugly, and I'm like, she's not really ugly. She's fine, but those suits are horrible. Who's telling? And they had, the Post had a feature a couple weeks ago. It's like all the important power women of Washington are going to this person who designs those coats, and like Elizabeth Warren has them, and there were 2 or 3 other people they mentioned, and I'm like, why? This is someone to be avoided.
Oh, this is going to be if she gets elected, this is going to be horrible just for that.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point one point on this too is that we here have also had ties manufactured, and the thing is that we couldn't find anybody in the U.S. that actually made them. I think there was one left. It would have cost so much money; it would have been ridiculous. You can get them made overseas far cheaper, and the quality's fine.
Right.
I think this is just such a specious argument on that part.
Who cares where your clothes are made?
Right. I mean, look at people complain about where their clothes are made, and then they go buy their clothes at Walmart. We know where they're made, right? So there's a lot of hypocritical things going on here. Bernie Sanders announcement that he bought a $600,000 vacation.
Speaking of hypocritical things, Bernie's free to spend his money as he likes. But people need to understand, when these guys are coming and they're talking to you about the 1% and so forth, they're the 1%. And if they're not when they start, they will be when they're done, because it is a lucrative business to sit on top of one of these organizations. And he's done it. This is 3 homes he has now. This is $600,000, which is not, around here sounds pretty average, but most of the country, that's a mansion. That's a huge edifice.
Yeah, you go into the South, into Texas, and probably Louisiana. I'm sure it's a big deal. And the thing is, it's just that and I don't begrudge anyone for being success and making their money, doing it honestly and whatever. It's just with Bernie, it's just so funny because capitalism has been very, very good to the socialists, right?
That's right. And he doesn't understand that and doesn't make that connection and never will.
That's right. Will Smith came out with a comment, on Islamophobia. Once again, Hollywood messing with things they don't know anything about.
Right.
Where do you go
with that? It's like, okay, if we could get to the point where we quit asking, why do we ask Sean Penn about foreign policy? He doesn't know anything about it. Everything he thinks about it is dramatically wrong. He thinks Chavez was a good idea. Let's quit asking these guys' opinions, and let's quit putting value into it, And let's treat it as an uninformed guy who's good at some other job, says X, okay? It's the same as an uninformed guy who is a machinist saying X, right? Those things are equal. One is not more important than the other.
Yep. All right, and then in Rio, we have the opening ceremonies, and turns into this, they have thrown the political message about climate change and all of this, which I also think is amusing in the sense, one is that what the heck are we doing politicizing the Olympics in that sense? But, Brazil, they have some problems. They've got Zika, they've got a president's being impeached, and they've got, sewage and all kinds of stuff in the river.
Sewage, they were totally not ready for this. Government is completely makes us look like a functional, streamlined running machine, right? And they're worried about that. It's you can't even prove that's a problem.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just is this if it's to deflect anything about all of that onto something else that's a bigger issue? I don't know. All right, time for the 2-minute warning. What you got?
Okay, on the subject of climate change, there were the attorneys general of 8 states who started subpoenaing records of trying to prove that Exxon defrauded people by selling gasoline after Exxon had research showing that there was global warming. Okay, so now Lamar Smith, chairman of the House Science Technology Committee, is subpoenaing the groups who put the AGs up to this and the AGs for their records going back and forth, because what you have now is private interest groups, people like AIM and CEI and the Heritage Foundation, except on the other side, being able to call Sheldon Whitehouse and Elizabeth Warren and say, hey, prosecute these guys. What are we going to prosecute them for? Fraud. Let's do fraud because they said this and it's that. Who cooked up this stupid theory? This is ridiculous. They are prostrating themselves to the global warming gods, and they will get nothing out of it.
All right, that's good. All right, and mine quickly will be just on the Olympics itself. We're day 4 or 5 into this thing now. We're seeing the Americans doing a great job. I think you get some new heroes out of this. Lily King, she and her finger wag, and Michael Phelps and his scowl and things like that. But the Americans are proving themselves, in the swimming pool, on the field, whatever you want to call it, doing a great job.
On the basketball court.
On the basketball court. We're waiting for that. We're waiting for the dream team to just roll right through it. But, it's like I say, go USA, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, that's it. Well, that's all the time we have for the Bias Buzz, and we'll see you again next week.
Bullseye.